Aloha and welcome to Digits Part 7. In this experience, we're going to add multi-user capabilities to Digits. As you recall, we've been building our little CRUD app, but we haven't been taking advantage of this whole sign-in thing. And so in this experience, we're going to do a few simple things so that, first of all, if you're not logged in to the Digits application, you can't see any contacts at all. And secondly, once you are logged in, you can only see the contacts that you've personally created. So this is going to create a true multi-user app that multiple people can keep separate contact lists, and contact lists are not globally available. Okay, and as with the earlier ones, because this involves some new Meteor stuff, I don't really recommend you fiddle around with this by yourself. It's much more efficient to just watch how I do it and then try it yourself. The other thing to emphasize is that when you're moving back and forth between branches of a Meteor application, it's real easy to kind of put Meteor into the weeds by kind of switching the code base from underneath it. So the best thing to do when you're moving back and forth between branches is to quit Meteor, do a Meteor reset to clear out and reinitialize the database, and then just reinvoke Meteor, and that's the common way to do it. Make sure before you start this WAD that you are using you've merged the final version of your previous WAD into master, so you're starting off the master branch. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is start the timer, and since I don't see my timer, I got to go find it. It is. Okay, so start. And then the second thing is I'm going to create a branch off of master called multi-user1. So let me go to GitHub and say multi-user1. And then what? Okay, so there are a couple little problems that I found in the master branch. The first is that if you look at the oh darn it, I don't have this going. If you don't, I mistakenly used the wrong CSS selector for the sign-in link, and it resulted. I'll actually show you what it results in. If you look at the way Digits currently looks, if you click on sign-in, there's actually some text at the top that says close, and some text over here that says create new account, which are not being displayed because they're actually being displayed in white text, and that's because I messed up on the CSS selector. So to fix that, what you need to do is you need to go into style.css, and instead of this particular selector, we're going to use this selector. I apologize for that. I somehow did not notice that before. So basically, we'll just make this change, save it out, and go check to see. Let's watch it refresh. Okay, so now if we go back to Google Chrome, we can see, aha, now we have this close and we have the create account, which is what we want. So let's just close that. And then the problems don't start there, actually. So if I go back here, and the second thing is that it turns out this user account semantic UI, which got added basically by mistake to the default template, it actually creates problems. For example, this create account is going to get like a access denied thing when you try to actually use it. So what we've got to do now is we've got to stop Meteor and remove this package and then start it up again. So let's go to terminal, Control C out of it, say Meteor remove. It's a very noisy day here today. Planes are flying around. Closed washers are running, but hopefully you can hear me. It's selecting package versions, and I'm gonna basically just do this remove and then restart Meteor using Meteor run minus settings. But I'm gonna pause the recording right now. Oh, okay. So it does that removal, and then we'll just restart Meteor. And actually, while it's doing that, we can go back and see what we do next. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is we want to associate an owner with each contact. And so the way that we do that is we go into the contact schema, which is probably here. Okay, and we're going to add a new field called owner. And it's going to be object, and the label I think should be owner. And the type is going to be string. And that's about all we have to say. Optional is, is false by default. We don't have any maximum length, and that's going to hold the ID of our of the person, the user who created this contact. So we did that, and then we're going to update contact seeds with an owner field. So remember, when we start up this software, we start up the Digits application, we want to pre-fill it with some contacts. And we do that in this file right here. We have these default contacts, and then if there's nothing in the collection, we insert them all. Okay? The problem is that we now want to have an owner field, so we have to update this with the owner. And what kind of owner do we have? Is there an owner around? Well, it turns out, nicely enough, because we load the accounts.js prior to contacts, if we look in accounts, we see that we create a user when we run this code with the username being in the settings file and the password being in the settings file. And just to kind of show, if we go out here to settings.development, we create a default account, username John, password change me. So when you run Digits, we create this default user, and so we could use that default user as the owner of our initial contacts. Okay, and because the syntax for that is a little unintuitive, I actually just showed you how to do it. This is the code that returns the ID of the default user in the users collection. Okay, so you do a meteor.users.find1. That's predefined Meteor speak for returning the object in the users, the accounts, collection, the users collection that's defined by the accounts package, and we're going to search for the specific user where the username is equal to our default username. And then once we get that object, which has a whole bunch of fields, we get the underscore ID field of that. And that's what we want to put in our collection. So actually we can just copy this, and we can go back here, and we can say owner, okay, and then we can do the same thing here. Okay, let me just do this, and do this, and then finally owner this, and if I do a propeller option L to reformat, that looks better. And then we have to import the Meteor package, so I'm going to say import Meteor from Meteor/Meteor. Okay, so that gets rid of that, and now we have all our contacts defined, and they should have the default owner associated with them. Okay, so if we go back to Google Chrome, we need to do a Meteor reset and a Meteor run settings to make sure now, after we get rid of the database and we reload our default stuff, that now this reloaded database will have an owner associated with every contact in the database. So let's go back to here, Control C out of here, say Meteor reset, and then let me just find this. I'm going to run this, and what I'm going to do, because this might take up to a minute, I don't want to just have you guys sit around, so I'm just going to pause until Meteor comes back up. Whoops, I paused the timer, not you guys. Okay, pause this. so now we're back. It's been almost a minute and a half, but we now have the application running again. And we can go here, and I always like just to refresh, make sure. And so everything looks good. We're not getting any errors or anything, so that's good. But to just make sure that things are the way we expect, what I'm going to do is update the HTML to show the ID of the item's owner in the table. Okay, so how do we do that? We go to the home page, and we can duplicate that field, and we'll call this owner. And then we can duplicate that field, and we can call that owner. And then we can wait for that to refresh. Okay, and we can go back here. And now we can see that the owner field is being displayed. So this is good. You know, what we suspected we wanted to do would happen. And so now our default user, whose name is John, is the owner of each of these default contacts. You're of course going to have different ID associated with your John, but that's fine. Okay, so now what we want to do is update the Add Contact page to insert the current user's ID when created or modified in an entry. Make sure you log in before testing your page. Okay, so this is pretty simple. What we want to do here, let me just go back here. Okay, is we want to go to Add Contact page dot JS, and then here we want to say const owner equals meteor.user_ID. And I'm going to put that code into the directions so that you know what that is, because again, that's like just, you know, Meteor specific library, and you might as well just, you know, find out. So basically, if you want to access the ID of the current user, you can call this anywhere on really anywhere except I guess within a method where you have to use this .id, but most places on the client or server side you can call that. And it will return null if there's no currently logged in user. So now what we do is we just add that to the, whoops, sorry. Okay, what we want to do is move this up a line. Okay, so now we just we get the owner from meteor user.id. You know, the user doesn't know what their ID is; they just think they're Jim or whatever. So we get the ID of that record from the user's database, and then we put it into the object that we're going to be inserting in this next line, and then we import it here. Okay, so now we want to test it, and to test it, it's actually important that we sign in. Otherwise, there isn't a user to test, and things will not work very well. Okay, so somehow, oh, I know, it just refreshed because we were reloading code. Okay, so now we sign in. We have John. We can go to the Add Contact field. We can say, well, it's Joe bar, address Main Street, telephone 808-956-0000, email joe@Main Street. That's very nice. Okay, so if we submit that, we can now see that we've just inserted a new record into our database, Joe@Main Street, and there's Joe. This contact is owned by John. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is to log out and create a second user, and log in as that user and create a couple of new contacts. Okay, just so we get this multi-user thing going. So we're John. Let's sign out, and then we'll say create account, and we'll call this person Ben. Change me, just telling you what the password is. Change me, just like the other one. Create account. Now we're logged in as Ben. And if we go to add contact, let's add ourselves. Ben Fu, address, bar, Bat Street, telephone 808-956-1111, and then Ben at bat.com. Submit that. Okay. So now we can see we've got, it says create 2 users, but 1 user is really enough to kind of get the gist of it. So now we've got our table showing all of the digits, which is good in a way, but we've got two different owners, right? The KWH, which is John, and the DS9, which is going to be Ben. Okay. Now the next thing is that we want to not be showing all of the contacts created by all of our users to any old person who goes to the Digits homepage. So what we're going to do to prevent that is to use this if logged in template, okay, which is something that's always been around there in the default the Meteor application template, but we haven't needed it till now. And basically it's a template that checks a few things. If it's, if you're just in the process of authenticating, it's going to show this loading. If you are logged in, then it's going to display the content of that page. Otherwise, it displays this, stuff that you're not logged in, you can't see it. Okay, how does that? You can look at the JS file, and you can see there's this auth in process helper, which just checks this Meteor logging in thing, and then can show just checks to see if there is a Meteor user. Okay, so it's a pretty simple template. How do we actually use it? What we can do is we can go to the home page, and then there's a couple places we can put it. We could put it, I guess we can just put it right here. We can say the syntax for this is if logged in, okay, and then on the other end we say slash if logged in, and then a propeller option L reformats our code so we've got the appropriate indentation. And so this is basically a template which takes some content as its content block inside it, and will display this inside stuff only if the user's logged in. If it's not, it's going to display that other stuff. So it's going to display the stuff inside itself, the content block, if the user's logged in. Otherwise, it's going to replace it with this div thing. So let's wait and see. I think we've restarted. So let's see that in action. If we go to the home page, okay, here we are. Okay, so we are logged in, so it's displaying this table. What happens if we sign out? Okay, if we sign out, all of a sudden we're not authorized to view this page. We can't do it. So we could sign in, for example, as John, and all of a sudden we can display it again. Okay, so that's pretty nice, yeah? So that's the home page. We'll do it to the add contact form and the edit contact form so that all of those are, so we got the add contact page. I guess I'll do it right before the form. So we say, oops, pound if logged in here, and then right below the form, right? Yeah, right before the form, right after the form, slash if logged in, and then we can reformat like that. That's the add contact page. Edit contact page, do the same kind of thing. There's a lot of different places you can do it. I guess I'm going to put it up here, mainly so that I don't check for the subscriptions, right, if there's no user. That makes more sense to me. So I'll put it right at the top. if logged in, and then let's reformat. Okay, so let's save that out, and if we go back here, let's wait, now it's refreshed. So we could go, let's, for example, go to the edit contact page, and if we log out, we can't see it anymore. And then if we log back in, and we say, notice we've got the actual ID up here. We can say sign in, and we get the contact back. Okay. Similarly for add contact, let's sign out. It goes away. Sign in. And it comes back. Okay, so all three of our pages are doing the right thing. The home page, the add contact page, and the edit page. You can only see these pages if you're logged in. Okay, so we're almost done. The final thing is to provide the user with only the context they have created. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, currently, let's look at our publication. Okay, what happens is we're publishing the entire contents of the contacts collection to all clients. And then, for example, in the home page, okay, we subscribe to that particular publication, and then we just find every element of the collection that we have locally in our client to print out. Okay. So one thing you could imagine doing is saying, well, we could edit this contacts list to only return the elements of the contacts collection for which the owner is our current Meteor user. And that would work. The only problem with that approach is that we're actually replicating the entire contacts database to every single client. And that has two bad things. One is it's possible for people to come in, using other means to figure out other people's contact information. And the second problem with it is that, let's say there were 1,000 people using this application and there were 1 million contacts. You're replicating a whole lot of information out to the client that the client never really wants to use. So the better idea on all counts is to change this publication to say a client should only be receiving from the server a collection of contacts where the owner field is equal to their user ID. Okay? So if we go back to our instructions, I basically give you the code to do that, which I'll just paste in, and then we'll talk about how that works. Okay, so this is a new version of the publication called contacts, right, which is going to be subscribed to, okay, when the home page is created. And what that publication says, this runs on the server side. All publications run on the server side. You can see it's in the server startup server directory. Okay, it finds out what the owner is by looking at the value of this.userid. Okay, and if that is non-null, if it's null, that means there is no logged in user. Okay, if it's non-null, then it means there is a logged in user for this particular client. And in that case, we are going to return a cursor to the documents in the contacts collection for which this user is the owner. Okay, so only those contacts that this user has created. If owner exists is non-null, then we return the elements of the contacts collection for which that owner owns it. And that could be, if it's a new user, there could be nothing in there, right? That's fine. However, if there is no current user, then this is null, and then we have to return something that says, we couldn't find anything, but it's all good. Keep on going. The publish process will conclude. Okay, so that's a little bit of Meteor magic. You just need to understand how that works in the case where you're not going to execute a MongoDB function. Okay, so that's the code to only publish the contacts that are associated with the currently logged in user. And you just can look at that, refer back to this code whenever you want to figure out how to do that. And it's widely available on the internet in the Meteor guides and so forth. Okay, so having done that, let's go back here. And if we go to digits, you can see we are now resubscribing. And notice that our entry from Ben no longer is shown to John. Okay, so that's sweet. So let's sign out and let's sign in as Ben. And let's see what happens. Great. Okay, now we're only showing the contacts that have been created by Ben. Okay, so so that's good. We can now look at, here's all our changes. That looks good. So implemented multi-user access, commit and sync. And if we wanted to, it's not a bad idea, you can go to the digits and we can see, yep, we pushed the branch, so that's there. And it took us right around 25, we'll call this a 26-minute WAD, start to end, involving at least a couple minutes of restarting Meteor. And so hopefully now you feel comfortable working with multiple users in Meteor.